India's steel and mining industry is evolving faster than ever. But real progress happens when ideas, technology, and leadership come together. With 10+ years of experience, Metalogic has been connecting the steel ecosystem through impactful industry platforms across Pan-India. We bring together CXOs, plant heads, innovators, and decision-makers shaping the future of steel and mining. Focused events for the steel and mining sector. Tailored, customized events designed for your business goals. Research-driven forums delivering real industry insights. Powerful product and company launches that capture attention. Because we don't just host events, we create industry brands. From brainstorming sessions to live demonstrations, we create spaces where innovation comes alive, and exhibitions that showcase the technologies shaping tomorrow. Metalogic events, connecting ideas, industry, and innovation. Join us to shape the future of steel and mining. In an industry that builds nations, information is power, insight is strategy. The steel and mining industry drives the backbone of modern infrastructure. But in a rapidly changing market, every decision needs reliable intelligence. It began with a simple idea: a morning WhatsApp news update for the steel and mining industry. The updates quickly gained industry participation and credibility across the sector. This growing community led to the formation of Metalogic Research and Advisory. During the global disruption of COVID, we launched our digital intelligence platform, mymetalogic.com. A central hub delivering market intelligence, industry analysis, and strategic insights. From daily market movements to weekly strategic analysis, our reports keep the industry informed. Our consultancy services support businesses with market research, commodity pricing, and industry analysis. Through MyMetalogic memberships, industry professionals gain exclusive access to market intelligence and premium reports. MyMetalogic, intelligence powering the future of the steel and mining industry.
And a very warm welcome to all our speakers and participants joining us today. I hope I am audible to all of you. Just give me a thumbs up if I'm audible. Thank you
Yes.
so much. A very warm welcome to all our esteemed speakers and its industry professionals and participants joining us today for Metalogic webinar number 64. And it is on Is Europe closing its doors to Indian steel? I am Monica Bachchan Duburi. I'm a founder of Metalogic Projects Management Services, and it is my pleasure to host today's discussion on a topic that is rapidly reshaping the future of global steel trade. Before we begin, a few housekeeping announcements. Today's webinar is being streamed live on our YouTube channel. Just in case if you're feeling any difficulty in joining from Zoom, you can simply go to the youtube.com and type Metalogic PMS to watch the recording, allowing industry stakeholders from across the globe to join the discussion. We encourage all participants to stay engaged throughout the session. We will also be conducting a quiz during the webinar. So please stay attentive as active participants will have an opportunity to test their knowledge and win exciting rewards. Over the past few years, sustainability has moved from being a corporate objective to becoming a key factor influencing international trade. The European Union Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM, is perhaps the most significant example of this shift. While the EU describes CBAM as a tool to prevent carbon leakage and promote global decarbonization, many exporting nations and industries are questioning whether it could also act as a new trade barrier. For India, the implications are substantial. Europe has traditionally been an important market for several steel products, and the introduction of carbon linked trade measures raises critical questions about competitiveness, compliance, investment requirements, and future export strategy. Today, we will explore several important issues. Is the EU protecting the climate or is it protecting its domestic industry? Will CBAM evolve into a broader global trade barrier? Can Indian steel remain competitive in the European market? Will steel trade increasingly shift towards the Middle East, Africa, or ASEAN countries? How should Indian steelmakers prepare for Scope 3 emission reporting and carbon transparency requirements? Will low carbon technologies such as DRI and hydrogen based steelmaking gain momentum as a result of these regulations? What could be the impact on stainless steel and value added steel exports? And importantly, will the proposed India EU free trade agreement be sufficient without meaningful CBAM related relief? To help us navigate these complex questions, we have an outstanding panel of experts with us today. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Vinod Kumar Singhal, Chief General Manager, International Trade Division, SAIL, who brings extensive experience in international trade and global steel market dynamics. We are also joined by Mr. Abhishek Bhaduria, Deputy General Manager International Sales at MNS India Private Limited, who will share valuable insights from the perspective of one of its India's leading steel producers engaged in global market. We have and we are privileged to have Mr. Atul Sharma, co-founder and advocate at Sarvada Legal, who will help us to understand the legal, regulatory, and trade implication arising from CBAM and evolving international carbon related regulation. We also have Mr. Akshat Dave, Associate Vice President, International Marketing from JSW Steel, one of India's largest steel maker of India. Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to join us and share your expertise with the industry. Now I would like to start the panel discussion with a question, which I would like to keep general. Is Indian steel makers invest If Indian steelmakers invest billions in decarbonizing to comply with CBAM but continue to face restrictions, safeguard quotas, is Europe truly rewarding green steel or simply protecting domestic industry? I would like to start this question from Mr. Atul from Sarvada. So, Mr. Atul, if you like to answer this question,
Yeah.
what do you?
So I think
Please answer.
first, what my first reaction to be that the billions of investment is not for the European market. No, it's for our domestic demand. No. So I don't think it may be appropriate to link the two. That being said, the way I see European carbon regulations or other measures, namely, while the safeguard will be eliminated, the quota regime will come back in a different form, for which countries have to negotiate with EU one by one. And EU will either grant concessions on some other sectors or will, let's say, with India, I believe the informal understanding is probably a larger share than what its historic exports are. The quota will be allocated to India. Now, while that may be higher than, let's say, others, it will still be at least 50% lower than our historic or the best trade years. So EU will continue to pose the challenge, and it is nothing but East India Company 2.0, where what the textile faced is now the steel and aluminium is going to face. So as a company, we have to continue to do business. There are some, what I would say, smarter ways to mitigate the impact. So like one suggestion when we spoke with the government of India is collect this tax like CBAM at the time of export, because you know the emission and you know the formula and you know the ETS price, and reroute it back to the Indian steel industry in hydrogen project grants and other grants. Not the exact amount, but let's say 85-90% of it. No. So that is one suggestion which can kind of mitigate or soften the impact. The realization of the Indian exporters go up or are unaffected by CBAM. But it's a circuitous process. No? We have to continue to do business, but at the same time, I believe at every opportunity we should call out what this practice is. This is nothing but imperialism 2.0. These measures are not going to contribute to the emissions. Even when you look at emissions, and this is my last thought, and I will stop here, that see, if you look at emissions, while the production emissions of EU have declined, the consumption emissions of the EU, none of these carbon regimes in the past 10 years have made a dent. No. So it is just that somebody else is producing that material is consumed, and Europe can claim success of their carbon taxation regime to say as if the emissions are going down. They are not, because the right matrix to look at is consumption emission and not the production emission. So with that, I think we have to continue to call out these measures of what they are. They are trade protectionist policy, but continue to do business through some smarter ways. And there are more thoughts, but I will discuss as we progress in the session.
Right, Mr. Atul. And anyone else like to make a comment on this? Since our steel makers, specifically, I pointed out to JSW, M&S, and SAIL, they have invested heavily and still investing towards, to reduce their carbon emissions. In fact, JSW is also working on hydrogen. The R&D center is working on it. So, Akshaji, what is your feel with this current situation? Please,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So basically, see, now as far as CBAM is concerned, I think more and more companies here in India also are investing heavily on the to reduce the carbon footprint. As JSW, also we are also adopting number of measures internally to reduce the carbon. And currently, CBAM is only pertaining to European Union, and probably going forward it might extend to various other countries. I think UK is coming next year with similar kind of regulations. So I would say that yes, but see, it's going to give us a more kind of strategic, by reducing the carbon emissions, we are trying to protect our access to the European market. So going forward, we have number of trade measures like duty, you have tariffs, and then on top of that you have carbon CBAM as well. So I think if you want to have you have to protect your market access in Europe, I think you need to invest more on reducing your carbon intensities so that you can remain relevant in that market and you can protect your exports, whatever you're doing to Europe.
Akshayji, if I may ask you, since JSW exports heavily to Europe, what feedbacks are you receiving from European customers regarding CBAM implementation and future sourcing strategies?
See, currently, initially there were a lot of confusion on regarding, what is happening on the CBAM front, what people were expecting. There was a lot of confusion. Now, what is gradually happening is that the EU customers are now moving away from the generic sustainability queries to more of installation level emission discussions. So, like for example, buyers are now asking like which production route is the steel coming from, or maybe you can share the verified emissions data, which is aligned to the CBAM methodology. So all these kind of feedback which is coming from the European buyers, this is reflecting that CBAM is now moving from more of a compliance topic rather to a more of a qualification filter. So that is what is happening. So more and more detailed information from the customers is being sought after from companies like JSW or maybe from SAIL, Tata as well. So people are requesting for like kind of pre-verification reports today. Earlier we were sharing some kind of CBAM data on actual values. The companies who were not able to do it was declaring default values. So, but now more and more customers want the actual emission data so that they can make a logical decision on how and they can align their strategies to import into you. So that is the kind of feedback what we are having from the customers today.
Okay, thank you. Vinodji, coming to you, Europe has traditionally been an important export destination for Indian steel. How do you assess the changing trade environment in the EU today? As a SAIL, how do you assess it?
Madam, good afternoon to all. And actually, these restrictive practices like carbon border adjustment mechanism, or what we hear now that reduction of free quota, and then also raising the tariffs. These restrictive measures EU is primarily adopting to revive or increase the capacity utilization of their own country, on this thing, various nations in EU. So that is, of course, India has been exporting a lot to EU, and particularly during COVID times or so, EU has really given a lot of benefit to Indian exporters. As CBAM, as Mr. Akshat told, some solution has been really found. Earlier, there was a lot of confusion. Now buyers are merely talking about compliance part, that we will be getting our meals audited by nominated assessors and this, that. They are no more talking about numbers, emission levels, because that is almost more or less adjusted in the market prices there. And whatever our export prices or domestic prices there, that CBAM discounting is more or less over, but we are to comply with their regulations. Regarding this tariff, which is likely to come in effect from 1st July, that is going to be another, it's a real direct blow on Indian exports. And it will definitely, whatever amount of quota, free quota is reduced, that will directly hit our free export there. And at the same time, it will make our exports costlier in that market. So either that market prices there absorb this increased landed prices, or we reduce our exports there, either of these things. But madam, in our opinion, Europe need to import around 7-8 million, say around 30 million ton per year. That is their import.
Why is it?
India is a
Why
partner
they
of
have to
around.
import so much? As in,
No,
is it that their
because
domestic
as
industries
such,
are not
madam,
possible?
As such, Europe is importing around 30 million ton year after year. 24, 25, 30
So
million.
you're talking about the total imports which are coming to
Total
Europe, not
import
only
to
from
EU.
India, but from other countries also.
From our country, that share is, madam, around 3 million, 10% or so. 10, 12% they are importing from us. Say once they reduce our quota, which is likely to be reduced to around 2/3. So our export will get limited to free export will get limited to around 2 million ton in a year. So how is this made up? Because they are going to reduce quota for all the nations. It is not that they are going to reduce quota only for India. This free quota is going to be reduced for all the nations who are primarily exporting to EU. Say this 30 million ton quota will get reduced to around 20 million. So proportionately, Indian quota will also get reduced. The thing is how this 10 million ton, which they really need for their consumption, is going to get made up. So the only way is either they increase their domestic production, or the buyers there will be paying tariff and then importing beyond quota. So the two possibilities are there. So the first possibility that mills there increase their production by 10 million ton and then actually make this quota reduction effectful. That is less likely to happen. On the other hand, what market players feel there, that these imports will become costlier, but volume will not come down so much immediately. So for a year or two, though EU is moving in a direction that there should be less import, but it may not happen immediately, say in a year or two. Eventually, it may happen if the mills come up there. But Europe has its own problems of increasing production. You know, very high labor cost, very high power cost, and all these factors may not be so conducive to increasing production in their own country. Only thing, imports will become costlier, and accordingly, like what has happened in US, the imports that Trump has imposed 50% tariff. So accordingly, domestic prices has to rise to absorb this increased costs.
Right, sir. Coming to you, Abhishek. Just 1 second. Yeah.
So
Abhishek,
yes.
yeah. So how prepared is the Indian steel industry to meet CBAM reporting requirements and future carbon-related obligations? And do you also feel that CBAM is a way of protecting the industry rather than putting standards on the steel quality?
So global trend is showing the same signs. Everybody is being protective about their domestic to protect their domestic steel industry. As far as the investments are concerned, the decision on investments will be made based on the value these investments will be making. Limited investments will definitely be done regularly on basically the equipments and the technology. As far as AMS is concerned, yes, we are still exploring the options and investing in exploring the technology diversification, wherein with respect to CBAM and decarbonization initiative, we are still exploring to invest in finding out the carbon capture and the carbon storage systems. But as I said, the decision will be surely based on how much value these investments is going to make. Because if quota is reduced, it won't make much sense to make huge investments for limited quantity of quota available. It's a question of survival then. We will look, we have to look at the geopolitics as well, whether environment is suitable or conducive for making such huge investments as far as CBAM is concerned. Like for example, DRI using hydrogen is still not commercially viable. Only those with high stake in Europe would be investing huge. Again, as far as AMS is concerned, what we are looking at it is the reduction of 47% average in all the steel category is not going to close the doors for Indian steel. It is only predominantly to increase the domestic production in Europe and to boost the European production so that the more and more European steel is being supplied to their downstream units. They want to promote the downstream units to use more and more European steel. However, we need to also take into consideration that this is going to limit the availability of steel for the local market, thereby increasing the price.
Abhishek, I also want to ask you, what are the biggest practical challenges in collecting and reporting emission data across the steel value chain? Specifically, when we talk about the CBAM and all these kind of policies. So the biggest problem with the steel companies coming up with the reporting emission and reporting the emission levels. So for you, if you could highlight what are the practical challenges?
So as far as the integrated steel companies are concerned, I don't see much of the challenge. We have the integrated steel companies have more control, right from mining stage up till the finished good deliveries. So we are very well poised with the technology to not even uh, capture the emission numbers, but also report these numbers. So we don't see any challenge in this. As far as AMS is concerned, we do have systems and process in place, and we have roped in third-party agencies like Bureau Veritas who have verified our numbers. And just for the information, we are the lowest in carbon emissions in India currently.
That's really nice.
And I'm sure this is applicable for all other integrated steel mills as well.
I'll corroborate what Mr. Abhishek says. Even this emission capturing is really it's not an issue for any integrated steel producer, because right from iron ore till finished steel, at every stage it can be computed what is carbon emission, and that CBAM formula, CBAM format, it can be very well accordingly, it can be computed according to CBAM format, and there is no dispute. There are a number of agencies doing it, and there are good agencies who are there to verify it. Probably that issue is probably settled now, that what is that emission level, what is the cost implication, and how a buyer has to really account for that in his purchase decision.
Right. Coming to you, Atulji, from a legal standpoint, how defensible are the Europe safeguard measures and CBAM under international trade rules, if I ask you that? Please unmute.
From a legal standpoint, this issue you can debate till the cows come home, and there will still not be any resolution. So why do I say that is, of course, where can this be challenged is World Trade Organization. World Trade Organization, the average time it will take to navigate a panel dispute process is about 2 years. Appellate body is not functioning, so countries will file an appeal in vacuum. So while you can debate the legality, the resolution is not in sight of that debate. No, it's going to be a very long and expensive litigation, number one. Second is how to challenge, if at all you want to challenge. No. So one mechanism is what Poland has done. No. So Poland currently has filed a litigation before the European Court of First Instance that CBAM was passed as a non-fiscal measure, which required only majority, whereas it is a fiscal measure, so it should have required in the sense unanimity. So that litigation is pending. So that's one litigation which could throw some outcomes in 2 years' time, provided Poland doesn't change the outlook. Because Europe is not homogeneous. Eastern Europe is energy mix of Eastern Europe is very different from energy mix of Western Europe. So that's one. Second, if you challenge these measures at a conceptual level, you may not even get success before the panel. What I mean by conceptual measures is whether taxation based on environmental objective is a good tax or not, is a legally compliant tax or not. So they essentially talking about Article 20, right? Article 20 of GATT. Those are very hard claims to win. But the way you win, if you see Russia filed a complaint against CBAM, there is a second section of that complaint which talks about inequalities. So while prima facie the treatment under EU ETS and under CBAM looks equal, Russia has highlighted certain key aspects of how EU ETS calculation would work differently from CBAM calculation. So that's a good claim where you will certainly win because you take away the main object. So you don't debate on the philosophy of CBAM, but you debate on the mechanics of CBAM. So those are probably, even if you have to pursue an international litigation, no, those are good claims to argue rather than.
So this is where, my next question is coming, where I want to ask you, could CBAM set a precedent for similar regulation in other developed economies?
Hmm. So one is, of course, it is already setting up, but the contrafactual which I gave is no. Imagine if you accept CBAM, then what prevents EU or US to turn around and say that I will now start charging work-life balance tax? So you mandate 70 hours work week. My workers are only allowed to work 35 hours work week. So on your labor factor, I'm going to charge 50% of the tax. No, so that's the counterfactual, right? So if you understand this, if you accept this narrative that on ESG criteria tax is acceptable, then no, the floodgates will open. So just like there can be a sugar tax or there can be a work-life balance tax also tomorrow, and you can't do anything about it.
And that will be, a different discussion.
So, so the
Yes.
morality, see, common environment is a common good. Labor rights are also common good. No, there are ILO conventions and no treating workers fairly, providing for unionization, etc. So if you accept that tax based on a common good, which is environment, is acceptable, then labor policy, non-uniformity in labor policy is also a ground for charging a tax. No, it's just a way of formulating it. No? So I just give a crude example, but counterfactuals only work if you give an absurd example. So that's one thing which comes to my mind.
Thank you, Mr. Atul. So, audience, I'm launching a quiz, not a quiz, it's a poll, where we have designed some questions for you. The questions are in front of you, so everyone, please be attentive. The question number one is, do you believe the EU new safeguard measures and CBAM will significantly reduce Indian steel exports to Europe? You have the following options: yes, significantly, or yes, but only in certain product categories. No Indian steelmakers will adapt. Option number four is too early to assess. You have question number two in front of your screens. Which EU policy poses the greater challenge for Indian steel exporters? The options are safeguard duty or reduced quota allocation or CBAM or weak European steel demand or all of the above. You have the third question in front of you. How prepared is the Indian steel industry for CBAM compliance? The options are very prepared, moderately prepared, not prepared at all. You have the fourth question in front of your screen. What should be India's top response to the EU steel trade measures? The options are challenge them through WTO mechanisms. Option number two is negotiate a bilateral trade agreement arrangement. And the third option is accelerate decarbonization of steel production. The next option is diversify exports to other markets or increase domestic steel consumption. And the last question in front of your screen is, if Indian steel exports to Europe decline, which market offers the best alternative opportunity? The options are Middle East or South Asia or Africa, North America, or domestic Indian market itself. So now, since the audience is voting on these following questions, I'll move to Mr. Akshat
And,
again.
Monica, can I add one more thing?
Yes, yes,
See,
please tell me.
we are evaluating no impact of CBAM on exports to EU. I think that approach also we have to change because, like, if you see right now, the debate is, I always believed from 2022 onwards that the scope, both in terms of emission and the product coverage of CBAM, will expand. Now, if you see the 2026 consultation paper, they already want to extend it to auto parts also. Okay. Now, once that happens, your domestic sales to an auto part company, which ultimately exports it to European Union, is going to get impacted. Number one. Number two, even within the existing structure, let's say your hot rolled steel or unwrought aluminum goes to Middle East, and that Middle East processing and further processing is linked to an EU value chain. So third country exports is also going to be impacted by CBAM. It's not just direct exports to European Union. So I work with the two largest aluminum companies. I work with some smaller non-integrated steel companies. Practically with every export volume, I have had to provide a declaration. And today, we are signing CBAM specific contractual responsibilities. So there is an addendum to a purchase order which fixes that who has the responsibility to do what rights would the auditor have. No, because the declaration item and a computation item, there are two separate sheets. So are we only supposed to provide the declaration, and contractually they are asking you should give the entire computation also, which has a lot of confidentiality aspects. So CBAM impact is not limited to EU. CBAM impact is visible in EU value chains, and this is only going to be compounded. The original CBAM regulation, I always said, I've been saying it for 3 years, is a teaser regulation. The ultimate holy cow for European Union is cars, right? So they can't imagine a scenario where steel and aluminum is expensive, but the auto parts and cars are not under CBAM regime. So that's the future we are moving towards. So inorganic chemicals, textiles, and auto ancillaries, they are the next agenda items, and you can expect a development in the next 2 years. The public
I
discussions
think
are
this
also
is
very
where
strong.
even US is also fluctuating their policies on aluminum and steel
Yeah.
very frequently.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Atul. Coming to you, Akshat, are European customers already demanding product level carbon footprint disclosure from steel suppliers like you?
Yeah, so they're already started asking for some kind of declarations. So we are currently in the process to see what kind of declarations we can provide to them. So because a lot of things are not clear as of now. So these are just the general guidelines which have been shared, and more clarity is expected to emerge in the coming time. So currently we are giving certain declarations which are within the scope of the established guidelines. But yes, there are a lot of things which are still open-ended, which we need to work upon.
And how is JSW positioning itself to remain competitive in Europe despite rising compliance and market entry barriers?
See, market entry, when you say market entry barriers, there are only two things which comes to mind. One is the quotas and the other is the tariff. As Mr. Singhal said earlier, CBAM is applicable for everyone today. So, it's no longer a trade barrier or an entry barrier to the market. But how do you improve your competitiveness in the market? If we traditionally look at, so all the Indian mills, they were always competing on a cost efficiency and scale. So now with the coming of CBAM, the competitiveness would increase depending on the carbon intensity and your ability to demonstrate a transition pathway. So for example, JSW currently is working on lowering the carbon, on certain lower carbon steel making routes, and also integrating certain renewable energy into the system so that, you reduce the carbon footprint, and that would help us to position with the European buyers who are focused on a longer term supply.
So Vinodji, taking the point from Akshat, what he has shared just now, if you could tell us, the EU argues that these measures support fair competition and climate goals. Do you believe they are creating a level playing field on or restricting more imports, Vinodji, following the argument of Mr. Akshat, of course? The Indian
No, madam,
steelmakers have to work really hard on that.
as it has unfolded, CBAM actually is not a discriminatory practice. It is uniform to all exporters there, importers to that country. And actually, the more carbon emission you reduce, that is actually going to give you more money in EU. That but like today our carbon emission is say around 2.1 ton, and if I am able to reduce my carbon emission to 1.9 ton, so automatically my product will fetch that much higher price in that market. So as Mr. Akshat and JSW is on the right track, maybe other companies will also follow this thing. So now the realization is there. There is one area in the world which is paying you directly for your carbon emission reduction. That beginning is done by EU by way of the CBAM. As such, we all are responsible to sustainability. We talk a lot about it, but there is no translation to monetary terms. That actual translation to monetary terms of this carbon emissions reduction is started happening in EU. Maybe it will fall to other nations. Maybe India may also follow some mechanism or say where we are rewarding less carbon emission. So we feel in SAIL that it is not a discriminatory practice. It has begun there before the other nations, but it is need of the hour. We all need to be responsible to our environment.
And how significant is this impact of EU safeguard quotas on Indian steel exports? If I particularly ask from the point of view of SAIL, JSW, and MNS, Mr. Vinod, since I
Madam,
think
it is
all
a
three of you are mainly exporting to Europe, isn't it?
It is a direct impact, madam. It is a direct impact. Say today our tariff-free quota is 3 million ton. Tomorrow it will become 2 million ton. So it's a direct impact on our export volume to that country. So there is no doubt about it. So ultimately now that our exports, if the beyond quota, will become much costlier there. Now that buyer has to take a call whether they can really pay higher price or they have to look at other sources. And it will also depend how quickly other sources, because this quota reduction is all over the world. Other than Ukraine, there is no other country where there is no quota. Ukraine is only free from any quota restriction as on date. So be it Turkey, be it Vietnam, be it Korea, Japan, India, every country is having a quota for imports in Europe. This quota reduction is going to be proportionate. So it's going to be direct hit, but ultimate impact will be known how it really translates into transactions there.
Okay. Can I say something?
Sure.
So I would respectfully disagree with Vinodji that it is not discriminatory. Okay. I am not on the aspect that different producers or different companies will have different incidents of tax. No. Of course, that itself is discrimination because of the energy matrix, but that's aside separate. If you simply look at the way free allowance is allocated under EU ETS regime, the formula for allocation of free allowance, that itself based on the export performance. So exports are not subject to CBAM from Europe. And the more exports you have, the more allocation of free allowance under EU ETS you get, which is not available to Indian exporters. So in the inbuilt formula, when someone argues that EU companies are also paying a tax under EU ETS and CBAM under I am also paying a tax, my incidence will be different. But the way the formula works for a free allowance is a direct export subsidy given by the European Union. No. So while today, with this teaser regulation, we may be happy that the impact is low, it removes the incentive to import and creates an incentive to buy locally and export from European Union. So you are going to see a tangible impact and the tax is discriminatory. No. So sorry, but I do not agree with the characterization that CBAM is not discriminatory.
Abhishek, what is your feeling on this? You want to add any comment on Atulji's statement or Vinodji's statement?
So my perspective will be towards the European customers themselves. So look at one scenario wherein today, when the quota is reduced, there will be very limited supply. When there will be limited supply, naturally the European mills will be happier because they are going to get the more chunk and they're going to milk some big money out of it. So the European customers will have to buy an expensive steel which is available in locally, right? Now today, while only the European market seems to be a better pricing market, outside Europe, there's hardly uh, any good market which is going to give us good EBITDA margins. So now the customer has got the limited steel available in domestic. They have got the expensive material available. Now you talk about the end users who are profile manufacturers, who are the panel manufacturers, yellow goods, the white goods. It's a question of survival to them.
Yep.
They won't be able to sustain too long. Now, since this is a transition phase and the European buyers are sitting on a stock, they have purchased some very good chunk in Q4 25 and Q1 26. So there's a substantial quantity available in their warehouse. So this is sufficient for them to sustain for, say, probably next 3 to 6 months. But after that, there will be huge demand coming up for the local European mills. Now, whether this local European mills will be able to deliver timely is a question that needs to be asked.
True.
And so this is a must to talk about. And then probably this also gives us an opportunity for the Indian steel. This gives us an opportunity to target, be ready and be prepared, because when there will be limited supply locally, these end customers will be looking to buy from Indian steel because Indian steel is very well accepted by the European customers in terms of quality and delivery, right? We as Indian steel mills, we should be ready for the right opportunity and be prepared, targeting the niche products, because there are certain, let us understand the fact that European mills are little older, very old mills they have currently, right? So there are certain products which are not available.
So which
This is the
products
product
are
that we
you
should target.
targeting? I think you're saying let's not go for with the regular product, but let's target the niche ones and the very specific ones. So on which side you are talking about? Are you talking about the alloy steel or stainless steel or some specific applications where the steel
No,
is
I'm
being
talking.
used? As in which quality
So
of steel?
I'm talking that when I say that Indian mills should be prepared for the right opportunity, is aiming the products which are not available in European market, which are not available in European steel. So the customers require certain products which are not produced by European mills. Like, for example, if we talk about the pre-painted steel, the thinner segment, the thicknesses between 0.25 to 0.35 is the thicknesses which are not available. So we can develop these, though we are worried about the productivity, but we can still manage the mathematics of it. And such products like the thinner gauges, and there are many other value-added grades and the products which we can be prepared that when the opportunity arises, we are ready to provide this segment also, because European customers are looking for a holistic range. They are not going to divide certain quantities to, say, for example, X mill and some quantities to European mills. They are going to face a limitation of the steel availability in the domestic market. It's going to be very, very expensive, and Indian mills are going to be very competitive. We should be prepared for that.
So tell me, ArcelorMittal को तो इतना फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा ना, because you have so many operations globally and India's contribution as what data Mr. Vinod Singhal shared is about 3 million tons, which India is exporting to Europe. So I'm pretty sure ArcelorMittal as a company, having offices and manufacturing units at various countries must be exporting steel to Europe. So उसमें ArcelorMittal निपॉन स्टील को तो इतना आई थिंक फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा, isn't it? As in, what is the
To an
volume of
extent, yes.
share you
We have
have
placed
with Europe, if I ask you that?
So yes, we are placed at a very bright spot today with the technological and geographical diversification. We are placed at the right place. Talking specifically in terms of AMNS India, we are working on supplying the steel through low emission route. And as I said earlier, that we have very low emissions, and we provide the carbon emission numbers to the customers so that they are able to quantify to what carbon emission cost they are going to face once the material is delivered at their end. This makes their life easier to calculate to exactly what price they have to pay, adding the entire CBAM cost. So you're right. AMNS is poised at a better place. But having said that, there are certain hiccups which probably once we get the notification from European Commission on the TRQ and the tariff-related quota, things will be much more clear.
Akshat, you want to make a point here?
Yeah, so just taking cue from what Abhishek said. So I just wanted to highlight here that two things would happen. So one is that for Indian exporters, there will be a shift towards higher value and differentiated steel grades. So that is one thing. The second, what will happen is that you'll need to look at a longer term customer relationship where carbon performance is recognized. So these two things, if you do, because going forward, pure spot market competition would become less attractive, and with the carbon emissions and the carbon cost being very high, so there will be a strategic shift, or there will be an evolution towards higher value and differentiated steel grades and a longer term relationships with the customers.
So exactly, that was my next question, that, what all alternate markets are we looking at if our exports to Europe get reduced in the coming time? And also, I'll add up one more question to it. Would these alternate markets also, do you see they will come up with certain restrictions? So this question is a open-ended question for all the steel producers rather. So I would like to take this question, what alternate markets do you see other than Europe?
Yeah, so there are a lot of alternate markets. I mean, the world is open for everyone. There are a lot of markets. Everything will depend from product to product. So there are certain products, which any of the mills are heavily dependent on Europe. But I feel Middle East is one of the markets. Southeast Asia can be good markets. But what will happen is when more and more of volume would start diverting to these other markets, then eventually even these markets will come up with some kind of trade measures or trade barriers or maybe safeguards, quotas. So that is eventually going to happen. Maybe Middle East, not so much because they don't have a local production, as comparable to other markets. But yes, we will see more and more protectionist measures being implemented in the other regions.
And Vinodji, where do you think we can sell our steel other than Europe? Or we should go for a negotiation with Europe now?
Madam, negotiation with Europe does not include steel. Already FTAs are being discussed, but exclude steel quota is excluded from that. And even the countries where they have FTA, steel has been kept out of the FTAs. So, as a steel producer, this FTA with Europe is not going to really impact us much. As you're right, India is increasing in its production. India as a country need to export more, and whatever reduction we get in Europe, that alternate market, of course, one natural market is Middle East because they are not producing of their own, as already told by Akshatji. Other markets we can think of, we have been time to time exporting to Southeast Asia, but other than Vietnam, we face competition from China there because other than other country, China is open there. Similarly, what more beyond we can look at it, that is South American markets, that Mexican, or sorry, this Brazil or other. Brazil, of course, at times have been a good buyer. And recently, in sale also, we have been able to book some parcels there. So that offers an alternate market. And may not be to that extent that as the Europe is. But yes, whatever we can try, there are maybe some more venues will open up. Africa is so too back today. Maybe they'll pick up after some time. But yes, Middle East, Southeast, and I'll add to what Akshatji told, South America, and at times even Mexico. These are the countries where we face don't much road tariff barriers as on date.
Right. And if I ask Abhishek to you in one sentence, if you could tell us what is the single most important step Indian steel maker must take today to remain globally competitive?
We firstly acknowledge the current situation. Once you acknowledge, then you'll have to assess and adapt to the new emerging technologies, focus on technological diversification, and invest in uh, the talent, the manpower, which can be developed to understand such regulatory measures, because this is going to happen everywhere. You talk about all the markets, whether it is Middle East or Southeast Asia or Africa, everybody is going to today or tomorrow going to come up with some or the other measures, be it trade barrier or be it any CBAM, similar to CBAM related. We need to adapt to the situation, and the technology is available wherein we can comply, like just like what we are doing in CBAM. So it's not going to be difficult for the integrated steel makers to focus on and achieve the targets of selling the steel from India.
Right. And Atulji, if I ask you, what kind of legal and compliance risk should Indian steel exporters be most concerned about over the next few years, what it will be?
So I fully agree that declaring emissions is not a challenge. Verification of emissions is not a challenge at all. No, it's a cost item for MSME. Uh, like for instance, we suggested a pilot project standardizing the general ledgers in which energy products are consumed and developing software solutions so that their compliance cost comes down. No, if the computations can be done directly from the general ledgers, it reduces the compliance burden. But that aside, see, I think, of course, we have to do business in this environment. Solution is not going to come from regulatory aspects. Solution is going to come from technology alone. No, there will be these competing regulations. Somebody will adopt a different kind of trade regulation. This is not an environmental regulation. This is also a form of trade regulation. But at the same time, we must be vigilant of a couple of things. No? So I think as an Indian producer, our demand should be harmonization of our sustainability and tax regime. So why do I make that statement? Take an example. First, under CSR, so when the debate 10 years ago was sustainability and not carbon tax, no, I have had multiple measures. So for instance, on mining, on royalty, there is a tax levied called DMF, District Mineral Fund. That's the best example of a sustainable levy. So when the debate was sustainability, India enacted measures which became sustainable taxes. That tax is inbuilt into cost of iron ore. Then came perform, achieve, and trade regime. So I have to buy renewable energy certificates because now that is being transitioned to the RCO obligations and your CCTS compliance, etc. So now you have a layer of sustainability taxes. You have a layer of petroleum related green taxes, and then you have a layer of carbon taxes. So harmonization of this regime and simplification of this regime is one demand we should, as an industry, make. That if your debate is sustainability, harmonize into one single legislation or give me a credit of one tax into the other tax. No, because compounding DMF, CSR, already from the profit, you take away 2% of the profit for corporate social responsibility. Is that not a sustainability tax on me directly? So if, let's say, so my position at Public Forum has been that there must be an effort to harmonize. Compliance is not a problem, but harmonization and bringing them under an umbrella regime is the need of the hour.
Thank you so much. I'm sharing the poll results with our audience. So our first question was, do you believe the EU's new safeguard measure and CBAM will significantly reduce Indian steel exports to India? 40%, the majority, which is a majority, said yes, significantly. It will be impacted. Our next question was, which EU policy poses the greater challenge for Indian steel exporters? The majority, which is a 33%, it looks like a mixed result, said all of the above. So the pressure is on reduced quota allocation and CBAM. These are the 2 points which have been highlighted the most. Then the question number 3 we had was, how prepared is the Indian steel industry for CBAM compliance? So the majority, 60% of the audience has said moderately prepared. So of course, we are not fully prepared yet. The question number 4 was, how should be India's top response to the EU steel trade measure? And the 32% of our audience has said accelerate decarbonization of steel production. And the second highest has gone to negotiate a bilateral trade arrangement with Europe. We had a question number 5. If Indian steel exports to Europe decline, which market offers the best alternative opportunity? So the majority of votes have gone to the domestic Indian market itself. So we need to be very 100% Atmanirbhar now. And the second highest vote has gone to the Middle East. So that's about the questions. We have few questions from our audience. Speakers can see on their window. I think the questions are visible to you. This question from Mr. Shankara Raman. He's asking, how does the game change for an Indian steel company which sends semis or HRCs to Europe and then resort to downstream processing within Europe? Anyone can comment on that from the manufacturing point?
So,
Yeah.
if the processing is for consumption within EU, from a regulatory standpoint, it doesn't make any difference, in the sense measure will still be applicable. But if the processing is for processing and then exporting out of Europe, then of course you have an exemptions available within European Union from CBAM.
We have one anonymous question. Do you believe India's strong domestic demand growth can absorb the volume potentially displayed by CBAM and other EU tariffs, thereby reducing export dependency on Europe? Or are we heading towards a phase of overcapacity as new steel capacities come on stream faster than domestic demand can grow? I think ये तो steel maker की तरफ से आना चाहिए. I would be happy if
One thing,
yeah.
maybe one thing, one context I will provide, and then
Yes.
See, I think if you look at domestic demand in terms of domestic sales by the producers, but then those ultimate products being exported, like I said, they will be impacted by CBAM, the new improvements to CBAM. But if it is a product meant for ultimate consumption in the EU, the downstream product, like auto components, then of course, I think we have potential, because our per capita consumption is still quite low. But of course, I'm just a lawyer, so just this context is what I think.
So सबसे ज़्यादा तो JSW, MNS and SAIL ये
Yeah.
जो capacity enhance कर रहे हैं. So let us ask from them.
No, what Atulji said was right, that the per capita consumption is still quite low, but it's going quite rapidly. I mean, if you see the transition from maybe 70-75 kg per capita to 100 and I think it's 118 now. So that way the consumption in India is going quite fast. But I think the volume which gets displaced because of the CBAM or the quota reduction would not particularly impact the domestic market as such. Obviously, some of the volumes can be absorbed locally because of the growing steel demand. I think if you look at in India, we are having a growth rate of almost 10% in steel, which is the highest in the world. So definitely some volume can get absorbed here, but more and more mills are diversifying into other markets. So I think a lot of material eventually move out from Europe to these other markets.
Abhishek, you were saying something in between?
So we at AMS are very positive on the growth story of Indian steel market as well as the domestic consumption. If you see the domestic market and the consumption for infrastructure segment and the government of India's push for renewable energy segment is very poised to consume the entire steel gamut, be it the capacity reaching 300 million tons by 2030. So we are poised at a very well positioned in domestic market. So the demand is not going to go anywhere. There's not going to be any hindrance for the
So you're saying domestic demand, as in domestic, we have that kind of potential that we can absorb those capacities which MNS or steel companies are coming up with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But of course, that will be balanced. That will be balanced by the domestic market as well as the export market. Will balance it out.
Yeah.
Madam,
I'm taking the last.
Though there is a very good consumption growth in the country, no doubt, We are consuming more than 10% year after year. At the same time, production is also growing, and particularly till 2030, massive capacity expansions are lined up. So, as such, we are going to remain a steel surplus country. There is no doubt about it. When we are a steel surplus country, the option is either to cut down production or to export to foreign markets. So any steel producer will opt for the option of going for export of surplus production. So no one can agree to it ki India will need to export. There will be need to export. 100% of the consumption production cannot be consumed within country. We are not in that stage. At least for next 4 or 5 years, we don't foresee that stage in our country. So the question is which markets are more lucrative to us. EU is today most lucrative, but it does not mean that other markets are not viable or something. We need to compete with low cost producers like China and all this and export. Middle East can be our next door market to us. We can really capture that. That is a very big market, enough to take all of our surplus. If we can drive China out of that. So, like, we have to come out with such strategies. We'll capture this market and we'll sell at competitive prices, competing with China. So there is no problem of exporting, and India is going to be still surplus. We are still surplus country, and that situation is true. That's a fact.
So we have to conclude the session also. I'm just taking two last questions. Kunal Bhatia is asking, what are the niche new products each companies are focusing to ensure the exports to EU still goes without much impact caused by CBAM and quota? I think this has been discussed by Abhishek that the color coated lines we can export, right, Abhishek? As in which products did you mention? If you could repeat it again.
So when you talk about the niche products,
yes,
all
niche,
the segments,
niche or new products which companies are focusing to ensure the exports to EU, which can
yes.
still go without the impact caused by CBAM or quota.
So in every segment, every product that can be done. We not only PPGI, it has to be done in CR, it has to be done in HR, hot roll products. You can target, for example, the segments like automotive. You can target to have a new product developed with a different grade, which is desired by the European automotive industry. For example, a super high strength alloy steel. So similar kind of grades, those grades which are which are desperately required by industry, a few different coatings. So for example, we have come up with Magnalese, which is nothing but a zinc magnesium alloy coated steel, which is required by the solar industry for mounting structures which give life of more than say 25 years. So similarly, we have come up with new products and the new grades in different segment. And this can be done by all the mills, focusing on niche and whatever industry is required. Something to do with
Right.
the research and understand the requirement.
And the last
Madam,
question
shall I add to it? Madam, shall I
yes,
add
sir,
to
yes,
it?
sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Actually, see, European quota is for all products. They categorize on HR coil, PM plate, PPGI, CR, and organic coated ions. So all your products necessarily fall under, they have a ceiling as quota. Quota ceiling is there. Irrespective of the high grade or low grade, quota is there for all steel products which are you are exporting to EU. Now that one strategy can be within that, there are certain products which are quota is fully utilized or overutilized, like HR coil, PM plate, CR coil, quota is overutilized. There are certain product categories where quota is underutilized. Like what I know, organic coating is yet there is a scope to yet underutilized. So at least we can ramp up that product export so that we reach up to the quota. It does not go waste unutilized. And within quota also, like today we are exporting a lot of garden variety. So we can target within that quota higher grades so that at least we get extra revenue while we are exporting and limiting ourselves within quota.
Right, sir.
Yeah,
So, a
Monica,
last
just-
question later, then we will conclude this.
Monica,
Yeah, Akshay.
yeah, just to add to Mr. Singer. So there is another product which no one talks about is the semis. So semis is currently outside the scope of any quotas in Europe.
Yes.
And what we foresee is in the next few years down the line, in 3 to 4 years, there's going to be a structural shift of volume towards semis rather than the finished product. So that is what eventually is going to happen in Europe.
I think this was the most important question which anybody could ask and to know who's exporting. So the last question which I'm taking is from Naveen Jayachandran. He is asking, has Government of India come up with any new structure platform which will measure carbon emission keeping CBAM in sight? Do we have any kind of system?
Not
with a
yet.
new
I think there was,
not yet.
I think one
Not yet.
Bureau of Energy Efficiency was supposed to set up
BEE.
one platform, but I'm not sure, when it's going. It was supposed to come by end of this year. I'm not sure about the progress of it. So
not
Mr.
yet ready,
Sharma
I
can tell.
believe.
yeah, not yet ready. I think. Yeah, not yet.
Yeah. So there's one carbon taxonomy Government of India is going to come up with, which will be in line with CBAM regulation.
Right. So with this, we will conclude this webinar. And really thank you all gentlemen for being here, taking out your important time. And audience, I'd like to inform you that Metalogic Annual Conference, 9th Annual Conference, we are planning on 13th of August in Delhi. So please mark your date to be available. The focus of annual conference this time will be specialty steel for defense, nuclear, and space applications. So the annual conference is on 13th of August and the venue is Lee Meridian, New Delhi. Thank you so much. We conclude this webinar. We will see you next week with our new subject. We are going to conduct the webinar. Thank you so much and have a great evening. Have a great tea and coffee after this webinar.
Thank you,
so
madam.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Pleasure.
It has been your pleasure.